So I am delighted to be joined with Elle McNicoll once again to talk about not only her second novel, but her second novel that's been published in lockdown. So welcome back.
This is surreal because you were my first ever interview when was it? Last April? The first ever interview for A Kind of Spark. So this is surreal. It's like a tradition.
Well, you'll have to come back each year with your new novel. So tell us a little bit about your book. For people who don't know, you have another middle grade book out called Show Us Who You Are. It's very nice, yes.
So Show Us Who You Are is a book that once again features an autistic heroine, but very different from Spark. It's set in the future, no virus in sight, don't worry. And it's about a company called Pomegranate who recreate real people as digital holograms, as versions of themselves. So it's like a digital Madame Tussauds, and people also use it to talk to family members who are no longer around. And the heroine, Cora, thinks that it's the most exciting thing she's ever heard of. And her best friend, Adrian, who has ADHD and who is unapologetically himself, he thinks it's horrible. And it's all about what's really going on at Pomegranate.
It's a really exciting read. And I have to say, I absolutely loved this one. I think I actually like this more than A Kind of Spark.
That's okay. A lot of people have said that.
So, no, it's great because it's like, for me, it feels like you're evolving a little bit as an author as well.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask, what made you go towards the more sci-fi kind of Black Mirror style with this one?
I think you'll understand this. After Spark came out, a lot of... Gosh, I can say this on this channel because it's an autistic-friendly channel. Lots of neurotypical people started telling me how important the book was and how inspirational it was. Just a lot of that kind of loaded language where I just said, it's just a story about a girl. It's just a story about a girl trying to get a memorial made. But people kept going, no. It's very important. I just thought, and also a lot of people assumed it was a memoir. They just really assumed that this was my life. So I was like, I'm going to write something completely different to prove in a way that neurodivergent authors are not writing about their own life necessarily. I write from my lens, which is an autistic lens, but I don't write from my life so much. So it was also just a big step away from something that's very realistic and could be perceived as an autobiographical piece of work. And I just wanted to write something very imaginative and zany and futuristic. And I can't wait for them to tell me how important this one is as well.
I thought it was important because it raised so many very important issues, actually. So I thought in that sense, this was a very important book. And I loved the sci-fi. I mean, I used to absolutely love this genre when I was kind of that age. It really reminded me a little bit of Gillian Cross, who, for anyone who's like in the 80s and 90s, was the Demon Headmaster, was like everything. And there was also a book called New World, which it kind of reminded me of, which was like a virtual reality game where there was like evil behind the scenes of this big corporation, So it was like, it was sort of a bit nostalgic in a way for me, but it was nostalgic without being like, oh, this is the same book. It was completely new and original. I don't know. I'm just like waffling now. I'm like fangirling. As you said, both. It's another novel with an autistic female protagonist who are both kind of staunchly proud of their autism and their neurodivergence and how it makes them them. And that came across much more in this one because, of course, the corporation Pomegranate is looking more at what makes you you. What is the essence of you that they can capture to turn into these digital holograms, grams they call them. When you were that age, were you that confident about your autism and neurodivergent, or is this like you kind of editing your own gram, like in some ways, like making this character what you wish you were?
I was nothing like Cora because, first of all, because I didn't have any of the terminology that she has. The Addie has as well. I didn't have any of that. It's what's so great about your channel, is that it just didn't exist when I was born in 92, so I found out I was neurodivergent when I was 9. So 2001, there was nothing. There was no access to these conversations. Nobody in my life knew anything about being neurodivergent. So I didn't have any of that confidence or that language, because it just I'd never seen it, which is one of the reasons why I put it in my books, is so that young ND kids who will have more access in this day and age, but so that they really can have that. She is very confident, and so is Adrian. He's confident on steroids. I just want them to like themselves. I just think that's my revisionism, maybe, because I think that's so important. I'm very conscious of the kids who will read it. The books are not my kind of therapy. They're not for me to explore all that internalized stuff from those days. It's for the kids now, and they need role models who go through a whole heap of things, but who ultimately, at the core, like themselves.
And I was wondering, because you said, the character of Adrian is like confidence on steroids. He has ADHD, and he's very open about that in the novel. Was there somebody who inspired you with regards to him, a friend or someone?
Yes, my boyfriend, actually. He is also autistic and other thing, and he is the smartest person I know, and is very bombastic and very friendly and gets on with everybody. And he, when we first met, I was still very much masking. I really wasn't, I was in my early 20s, wasn't talking about being neurodivergent at all. And he was so open about it. He was so, completely okay with it. And I'd never met another person who was like that before. But he was just so okay with who he was, which is how it should be. And I was like, wow, I need to be more like that. I would never talk to a previous boyfriend about being neurodivergent. And that's not right. Like, I know that, but that was just how I was in those days. And he was just so like, oh, it's because I'm this. And I like that. Adrian and Cora, don't worry, they don't, nobody makes out in this book, but like, it's very that kind of relationship of sort of like, seeing someone else kind of walk through self-love and self-acceptance, and you kind of go, okay, I can do that as well.
I mean, if it had been a young adult book, they definitely would have got together.
Oh, yeah.
I feel, Show Us Who You Are, to me, is like, it's like huge ideas, big themes. You're exploring not just neurodivergence, but grief, class, capitalism, and all these things. Do you think these topics are something that most people are too afraid to discuss with children or to write for children?
That's a good question. I think possibly, but what I find interesting is I don't think kids shy away from it at all. I think kids, this is what I learned with Spark, is that I got this message from a bookseller, I should say, shortly after Spark came out, and they said, oh, we really like the book, we think it's great, but we're a little bit worried how we're going to sell it to kids, because it talks about, this Bonnie character, and that's very scary and that's very frightening. And I really took that to heart, and I was like, God, is it? Like, am I a terrible person for writing about what's going on and doing that? And I really internalized, I was like, oh God, but the kids love it. I have 6 letters from kids in my book that are, all saying, we want a book from Bonnie. Like, we love Bonnie. There's such a disconnect between some adults and children. I never believe in protecting the reader from, there's certain things I'll never put in a kid's book. Let's be real. But I think these things are so around us that children are already susceptible to them, and also the kids that I talk to when I do virtual school visits, they're talking to me about climate, they're talking to me about activism. They're so much more engaged socially and politically than I ever was. These things are peppered throughout show, the things that you mentioned. I didn't put them in there as an agenda. They just sort of came organically out as I was writing the story, because they're what's going on in our world. And I think the kids will respond to that. But yeah, I definitely think that the grief aspect is probably going to trouble some adults. Nobody dies on the page in show, I will just say. It's grief that's already in progress as the story begins. But I think some adults are, especially in the UK, they're not able to talk about grief. It's something that a lot of people in the UK don't have any capability with dealing with, which I think is very sad. I think it's something we should always talk about.
And especially after this year, I think that's what makes it, in some ways, I think it'll make it have a broader appeal than a kind of Spark, because so many kids will be going through stuff like that. So many people will have lost people and maybe not know how to deal with it. And this is someone And I like that she doesn't really have her, she doesn't have it all together. She hasn't figured out how to grieve or how to deal with it. She's just kind of making her way through, as best she can.
Yeah, very much so. So I wrote it in lockdown. I started writing it probably about this time last year because I had coronavirus and I was locked away from everybody, and so I started writing it. And it started as this kind of fun, futuristic sci-fi, and then my friend passed away from coronavirus, and we couldn't go to the funeral. I think they were in New York, and I think they were buried in that horrific big grave site, and then everything in the story changed. Suddenly it was a different book. And and I totally agree with you, Sam. I think especially in the UK where we have this appalling death rate, I think people are going to be so in touch with that. And I think not talking about it is so much crueler than talking about it. And as I said, I don't want to scare people. Nobody dies in show. It's not, that kind of book. But she is dealing with these feelings of grief and loss. I just tried to be as honest to what that feels like, and to really put it simply. And I've already had incredible letters from people who are grieving, and I just think that talking about it is so much better than not.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably what every author wants to hear when they've just completed a project. Do you have any more plans for more novels?
Yes, the publisher very kindly sent me an offer for the next couple of books a week ago and said, well, yeah, we just need the first draft by May. And I said, great.
Yeah, no problem.
No worries, nothing's going on. So yeah, book 3 is currently underway. I don't know what I'm allowed to say about it, but surprise, surprise, it's another Andy heroine. So...
And the one thing I was thinking of, actually, when I was reading Show Us Who You Are, I thought this would make a great movie. Would you like to see it as a movie one day?
I really, really would. I think Spark would make a nice little TV show, and there are things happening I'm not allowed to talk about. But Show, I think, would be a nice film, and I would love that. Yeah, I'd really love. I mean, of course, I think every author, even though some of them moan and complain about how their work could never be adapted properly, I would love to see it as a film.
I think it would be such a cool film, especially now. In the 90s, if it was made, I'm just thinking the NAF special effects. But now we can really do it. We can do it a good service. So I feel like I would definitely back that as a movie. I just wanted to end with, there were so many points throughout this book where I was just taking photos of the page with my camera to oh, this is a great quote, this is a great quote. But I want to end with my favorite one. And it says, walking a lonely path by yourself, one that no one else has ever walked before, is only scary before you begin. Once you're walking the road, you just have to make sure that you never glance back, never let people's incredulity, their judgment, their doubt, or their hate creep in. And I've actually stuck that by my monitor because I'm these are words to live by. Oh my gosh.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try and take that advice myself. It's really difficult, but yeah, when you're doing something that's terrifying, maybe you're writing your first novel or whatever it is, you have to be what's his name? You have to be like Orpheus. You can't look behind you. You have to just keep getting out of hell and not looking back. So yeah, I like that one as well. Thank you.
It is available from March the 4th. Is that correct? World Book Day?
Yes.
And that's in the UK?
Yep, UK, the rights have sold to the Netherlands and to Italy, and hopefully more soon.
And A Kind of Spark has now been released. The US version's been released?
Not yet.
It will be.
Available for pre-order in the United States. It will be released on the 19th of October. So if anyone's in the States, please pre-order because the publishers over there, they only care about pre-orders. So it's out in October.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It was absolutely a pleasure to get through this book. Honestly,
thank you so much.
I was just I felt like a 12-year-old girl again reading it,
Yay!
And is there anything else that you want to say about the book or the release?
I just, I feel really liberated when I talk to you on this channel because I just think that the majority of people probably get it. This is a book which has some tough baddies in it that might say things that you've heard in your own life and that are difficult, but I promise this heroine's going to knock him down. So yeah, I really hope you guys come on the journey with her and enjoy it. And thank you so much for those of you who support Spark.
Well, it's highly recommended by me, so please go out and buy it. And I hope to talk to you next year with the release of your third novel.
Will do.
All right, bye, take care.